This is today's Cyber News for November 6, 2025. You can also subscribe to the newsletter and view the archive of previous headlines at dailycyber.news. Researchers described how indirect instructions embedded in websites, documents, or emails could quietly make large language models, LLMs, expose past chats and stored context across connected tools. No click is required. In practice, a booby-trapped page or shared file can nudge the assistant through an integration to reveal sensitive snippets like customer notes, credentials, or internal plans. The weakness sits in how a large language model, LLM, interprets untrusted instructions that arrive through previews, shared links, or plugins rather than directly from the user. Enterprises that enable memory features and broad connectors face the highest risk because they centralize context across many sources. It matters because quiet leakage erodes trust, creates legal exposure, and may slip past normal logging. Vendors say mitigations are rolling out, and teams are reviewing which connectors and memory features remain enabled while longer-term design changes are tested. A new cloud study found that most breaches still stem from exposed access keys, weak identity policy, and permissive network rules rather than exotic exploits. The basics keep breaking. Attackers hunt for forgotten tokens in source code and open storage buckets, then pivot quickly using overbroad roles. Multi-account growth outpaces guardrails, and manual change processes rarely keep up with drift across regions and teams. It matters because preventable outages and data loss persist until identity and configuration baselines are automated and verified across the entire organization. Teams that rely on hand-built firewalls and ad hoc policies are the most exposed, especially where there is no centralized detection for risky changes. The practical takeaway is to automate guardrails, rotate and scope access keys, and measure drift so fixes stick between audits. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, added a Control Web Panel remote code execution flaw to its known exploited vulnerabilities (KEV) list after seeing active use by attackers. Control Web Panel is widely used to administer Linux servers, especially by hosting providers and managed service firms that run many tenants. A successful exploit can grant full system control, deploy web shells, and open a path to backups and customer environments. That is a fast cascade. It matters because a breached management node can clobber multiple clients at once while hiding lateral movement under routine maintenance traffic. Federal agencies face a remediation deadline, and private operators are matching the urgency while checking for rogue users and unusual outbound traffic from admin hosts. Exploit code is widely available, which narrows the window for safe downtime planning and verification. Network defenders reported a resurgence of the bad candy implant, targeting Cisco routers through old management flaws on internet-exposed devices. Once lodged, the malware persists across reboots, masks its communications, and grants remote control for data theft and staging. Attackers prefer EdgeGear because it anchors site-to-site links and often sits outside endpoint visibility, which lets them siphon quietly for long periods. Some victims show signs that earlier compromises were reused to regain access after cleanup. It matters because a compromised router undermines monitoring across the network and becomes a launchpad for additional attacks. Teams are upgrading firmware, auditing boot variables and access lists, and turning off external management where it is not essential. Attention now focuses on new admin accounts, unfamiliar cron jobs, and steady trickles of traffic to rare hosts that indicate persistence. United States Treasury announced new sanctions on facilitators who convert North Korean hacking proceeds into hard currency. The Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, named exchanges, over-the-counter brokers, front companies, and specific wallet addresses that screening teams must block. This action raises penalties for firms that transact with the listed entities and puts banks and fintechs on notice about heightened due diligence. Soon after, payment partners began updating screening tools and sending advisories to counterparties across high-risk corridors. It matters because cutting off cash-out channels raises costs, slows payouts, and starves the operations behind high-profile intrusions. The effect is immediate. For now, the designations take hold, and attention turns to whether enablers rotate wallets or route funds through fresh intermediaries that are harder to spot. SonicWall said a September intrusion was carried out by a state-sponsored actor that accessed firewall backup data. Investigators reported the intruder targeted management systems to rifle through configuration files and embedded secrets used to administer customer devices. The company rotated keys, tightened access policies, and began notifying impacted customers while law enforcement and external forensics teams engaged. Backups often contain hashed passwords, shared keys, and network maps, which shorten the path to a second break-in. It matters because follow-on attempts may reuse those secrets or mirror a victim's network layout to move faster and quieter. Backups can betray you. Customers are comparing running configurations to golden images, checking for unexpected admin accounts, and watching management consoles for odd logins. Researchers detailed malware that uses automation and model-driven code changes to morph and slip past simple detections. Payloads adjust strings, file names, and control flow to defeat signatures, then regenerate quickly to create rapid hash churn and confused triage. Delivery still leans on phishing, cracked software, and poisoned downloads, but the code that lands is far less predictable and far more agile. Some campaigns mix living-off-the-land utilities with just-in-time modules that appear, act, and vanish between scans. It matters because indicators go stale fast, and defenders have shrinking windows to block, investigate, and contain an ongoing intrusion. It changes fast. Artificial intelligence, AI, is not the magic, but it accelerates the rewrite cycle enough to raise the cost of defense and punish slow response. A high-severity weakness in the React Native Command Line Interface, CLI, exposed a path to remote code execution, RCE, during project scaffolding. The issue came from fetching template content that could include scripts, which allowed a poisoned template or a man-in-the-middle to plant backdoors, steal tokens, or tamper with signing keys. Many developer teams use the NPX convenience flow, which pulls and runs code with very little ceremony, and that convenience turned risky when trust of the template source was not pinned. It matters because a compromised developer laptop can taint signed builds and leak credentials that unlock production systems long after the original event. Maintainers published patches and guidance, and engineering leaders are locking templates to trusted sources while hardening workstations with least privilege and application control. Developer endpoints hold the keys. Meanwhile, defenders are watching for unusual child processes spawned by the CLI and for sudden additions of high-risk packages on developer hosts. Mobile networks across the United Kingdom moved to block calls and texts that spoof trusted numbers. Carriers combined caller authentication, pattern analysis, and takedown agreements, while banks and government agencies supplied lists of numbers that should never originate from overseas routes. Early pilots showed clear declines in successful scams as faked calls were throttled before reaching customers, which eased pressure on fraud teams and contact centers. It matters because fewer spoofed calls reduce payment fraud, protect vulnerable customers, and buy time for stronger verification habits. Fewer fakes get through. Organizations are registering critical numbers with carriers, updating caller verification scripts, and tuning fraud models to the new call patterns. For now, monitoring focuses on whether attack volume is displaced to messaging apps and deepfake voice lures rather than erased. That's the Bare Metal Cyber Daily Brief for November 6, 2025. For more, visit baremetalcyber.com. You can also subscribe to the newsletter and view the archive of previous headlines at dailycybernews.com. We're back tomorrow.